Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay, everybody, welcome. So we thought that we would talk about temples and the temple worship. We use the word worship, but you might want to just say meditation. It's really about meditation. We'll talk about all of that. Is that okay? Because we see so many temples in India, yes? And it's everywhere you turn, there's a temple. Does anyone know how many temples there are in Rishikesh right now? Anybody? Do you think it's in the hundreds? More? Thousands?
Possible.
Millions?
No, millions. Thousands, I think so.
I have news for you.
Eh?
It's not only in the millions. It's not even in the billions. It's more. Because, and this is what's so important to understand about the worship that's done in the temple. The worship that we do in the temple, we can see, it's easy to see God in the temple. What's more difficult is to see God in every living being. And the worship in the temple is to help us see that every living body is a temple. Right? Everybody. So that means it's not only millions, it's billions, trillions, billions. It's a trick question. But this idea is it's very deeply ingrained in the teachings and the culture of India and of Hinduism, you could say, or of Vedanta. But it's there. You see it other places. For instance, in the Bible, the Apostle Paul is writing to the people, the Corinthians. Right? Where is Corinthia? You people from Croatia know? It must be somewhere in that area. I'm thinking somewhere on the edge of the Roman Empire or something like that. But he was writing to the Corinthians. And he wrote, think about this, he was writing, that was kind of like the Christian church was a very new thing, underground, dangerous even. And he was writing to the people, the practicing Christians in that area, and he wrote, don't you understand that all of your bodies are temples to the Holy Spirit who dwells inside all of you? Interesting, right? This is the vision that the yogi must develop, right? That I can see every body as a temple. And why is it a temple? Because the Holy Spirit is inside, because God is inside. Right? The soul, which is the conscious divine energy of God, and God himself, as the Paramama, is within every body. So when we see temple worship taking place, we should try to understand how deep it goes and not just approach it on the superficial level, but try to help. It should bring us to this deeper understanding. Sometimes people say, I don't need to go to this temple. God, nature is my temple. That may be. If you can actually see God everywhere in nature, then that's fine. But most of us have trouble doing this. It's not so easy. One analogy that's used by the sages, they would say that to dig a well to get water is very difficult. Nowadays they have modern machinery, but before that you can imagine how hard it would be to dig so deep into the ground, through all different layers of earth and even rock. And sometimes you have to dig very, very deep until you get a well and the water comes up. So very challenging to get water by digging deep into the earth. But if you come to a pond, the water's right there on the surface. And so they say to find God within one's own heart, or to find God within the heart of another, that's very difficult for us to see. Our senses have become too dull to this. It's like digging very, very, very deep. We need to do it. We need to get there. But when you walk into the temple, it's like the pond. It's right there. Here's Radha and Krishna right in front of our eyes. Right? And the entire temple, we come to serve Radha and Krishna here. This is a temple to Radha and Krishna, to Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda, And this is also Krishna in the form of Jagannath and his brother Baladev and sister Subhadra. So we come to worship them, you say, we come to see them, we come to meditate on them, and we serve them. Here do you know how they're served here? Every day they get, many offerings are made, right? And we can go into the details too of like what's offered, but it's very similar to the idea of how one greets a guest in their home. If there was someone that you deeply loved and deeply respected, and they were going to come to your home, and you wanted them to stay and never go, then how would you serve them? And the different offerings are offered with mantras of all the different. First, there's a welcome offering, right? Then, please have a seat. Idam asanam, Klim Krishnaya namaha. Dear Krishna, please have a seat. The idam padyam, Klim Krishnaya namaha. Dear Krishna, let me please wash your feet. And then step by step like this, something nice to drink is offered, and it goes on and on. He's given a bath. He's given nice fragrant oils, clothes, nice clothes to wear. All these things are offered every day here. Food, etc. Nice garland of flowers and so on. All these things are offered. It's a way, in one sense, Krishna doesn't need these, right? In one sense, all of this belongs to him already. But it's a chance for us to develop the right focus and the right ideas and the right sentiments, that our heart becomes softer and softer and softer. I don't know if you've ever seen, but sometimes you go down to the water here, into the Ganga, and sometimes when people are making an offering to the goddess Ganga, they take some of the water and they hold it in their palm, and then they go like this with it. Have you seen? They go like this. They offer the water back and then they pour it back in. So, in one sense, what are we offering? It's the energy of the water is her energy already, and we're offering it back. It's not that she needs it, but it's a way for us to bring our mind to something that's very sacred. I'm from New York. In America, I suppose in the English language, there's a phrase, is nothing sacred? Have you heard this before? In your languages, do they have a saying like that? It's like when someone's really disappointed with someone else's behavior, and they say, is nothing sacred? Right? Isn't there anything in this world left that we consider sacred? And the temple is designed in such a way to help us not forget. You see, we move through this world commonly very dull, not recognizing God within the heart of every living being, not recognizing how sacred all life is, every life form, right? So, in a sense, like building the temple is a way of saying, like, is nothing sacred? We need to see God. Here we come. He doesn't so much need our service, but it's an opportunity for us to develop the consciousness where we see this is sacred. And then we can see that same sacredness everywhere we go when we come outside of the temple. Does that make sense? So the building itself, the altar itself, the decoration, all of it has a deeply yogic, meditative purpose to it. It all has a purpose to it. Sometimes I like to define yoga like this, that yoga is a practice which empowers one to overcome the obstacle of the mind for the purpose of the self experiencing their own true nature. And when you experience your true nature, you experience your true nature in relation to God, and you see that God everywhere. But the mind is standing between us and that experience. And yoga is the practice by which that vision is restored, by which the mind is controlled and we can see again everything. Then we can see God everywhere. We can see that sacred spiritual energy everywhere. And so all of this is designed in such a way to do that. Sometimes I think of like a picture frame, like you see these paintings on the wall here? They all have a frame, okay? Have you ever thought about the frames very much? Normally we think of the painting. We don't think too much of the frame, but the frame has a purpose. One, it draws a border, and it says, focus your attention here. Don't let your attention be splayed out everywhere. Bring your attention right here. So it creates, by creating a border, it creates a focus. But it also sets a tone through which you see. Like you see, these are all nice paintings of Krishna's leelas, Krishna's pastimes. And if you look at the frame, when I look at these frames, I think they're very appropriate. They're elegant, they have a beauty to them, a certain grace to them, they're a bit ornate. And they let us know something very lovely, something very charming and beautiful is happening within these borders. Bring your attention to it with that mood, right? And so you could say the temple is that way too. When you come to any temple, some temples in India are the most magnificent structures you can ever imagine. Stunning, breathtaking, Have any of you been to South India before? Seen some of the temples there? Have any of you been to Madurai before? Meenakshi temple? Dude, just the gates of the temple, right? The Gopurams. They're massive. They're like over 300 feet in the air, I believe, and they have thousands of carvings of all the gods and the goddesses, the devas and the devis, and they're painted in beautiful colors, and it's so tall and it's got this curve to it, the way that it goes up. And you could just stare at the gate for hours. And then you walk through that gate. When you're walking through that gate, you realize what's on the other side is something very special. Right? It's helping prepare your consciousness to enter into a state of sacred meditation. Right? So like that, a temple may be a grand, incredibly opulent, ornate structure, or it could be a very simple little, just under a tree, almost just like, or in a little closet somewhere, right? But in general, these principles are there that it's going to be framed out, and there's going to be an altar. Right? And the altar, it's elevating the object of the meditation, right? And it's elevating and it's contextualizing. You understand? Contextual, it's helping us see in the right context. Again, this is sacred. See this here. Right? And through practice, any yoga practice involves regulation, right? How many of you practice asana? Okay, practically everyone. And do you practice daily, or do you practice every now and then? You're honest.
I heard you send me.
But generally we find that if we do it every now and then, it's beneficial, but better to do little every day than to do a lot and then stop and then, go back and forth. But if there's a regulation, a steadiness, then gradually, particularly if it's done with the right mood and done regularly and then done over the course of a long time, then the object of the meditation can become firmly rooted, and the result of the practice can become firmly rooted. And so like this, you see, sometimes we've even seen people, they've come, this nice lady has come, she's going to go. She may come here every day. There are people that will come to the temple every day. Every day, I bring my attention I walk through the gate, I come in, I look at the altar and how it's framed, the ornate beauty that's used to draw my attention to what's most sacred to Sri Radha and Krishna, right? And by doing that daily, opening my heart, opening my mind, opening my heart, purifying my eyes, then gradually it becomes firmly rooted in my awareness. Jai Shri Radha Krishna Ki Jai. Now close. And then the regulation is that when the altar closes, then one bows down. And that's part of the practice. Right? That within the heart, one places their head at the feet of Krishna by doing that. Now there's the temple can become, the worship in the temple, like any ritual, can be misunderstood, and can also, one can lose the essence of it. One can do it for lesser reasons rather than the deeper, most important reasons. In the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the Bhagavad Purana, this ancient text which is really the culmination of all the Vedanta, it speaks about this type of worship. It writes some very interesting things. Even before, I want to read you something that's written there. But even before that, it mentions another thing. There's this king, Nimi, and he's speaking to this group, they're called the Nava-yogendras, these 9 yogis. He's asking them questions and they're giving brilliant, beautiful answers. And he asks about the different levels of bhakti yogis. How do I understand who's a very advanced bhakti yogi, who's really achieved the goal of it? And how do I understand if one's kind of in the middle? And how do I understand if one's like just a beginner? Okay. And there's a verse there about the beginner. Okay, are you ready to hear about the beginner? And when we say beginner, it's a little bit more critical. And it doesn't just say beginner, but it says the prakrita bhakta. It means like a materialistic bhakti yogi. Hardly really understanding what the practice is. Okay? But it... Yeah. Okay, well you just let me know a few minutes ahead. Because I will get lost, I'll just speak. Okay, so the prakrita bhakta. It says, archiyam eva hariye. Archiyam. Archanam is the Sanskrit word for the deity worship, right? The temple worship. Archanam. Archiyam eva hariye. Pujam ye shradheyate. It means that when they walk into the temple, they'll worship God in the temple. They'll worship Krishna in the temple, right? Archiyam eva hariye. Hari. They'll worship Hari. They'll worship Krishna. Archiyam eva hariye. Pujam ye shradheyate. And with faith, they'll perform the worship in the temple. Archayam eva hariye pujam ye shradheyate. What is it? Archayam eva hariye pujam ye shradheyate. I'm forgetting the Sanskrit now. But in English what it is, but they don't worship God within the heart of the devotees. And they don't worship God in the heart of every living entity. Such a person, sa-bhakta prakrita smritaha. Such a bhakta, such a bhakti yogi is called a prakrita bhakta. Just they're a beginner, you could say they're a materialistic devotee. They haven't gone very deep in their understanding of what it's all about. Interesting, yes? Would you like to hear the description of the advanced bhakti yogi? I'll read you that. The most advanced devotee sees within everything the soul of all souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord and understands that everything that exists is eternally situated within the Lord. That's when we really understand. When the illusion and the clouded programming that's within our mind has been overcome, then we don't just see God here. We see God everywhere. And we feel God's presence everywhere. But the practice here is to help us do that. And that's why the temples are so important. Right? That's why. Because it's hard for us. We move around and our minds and our senses are programmed with so many ideas of who we are. We misidentify with the body. We misidentify with the mind. There's programming in the mind that has us convinced that I need this to be happy and I need that to be happy and I need to avoid this and avoid that to be happy. Right? And because of that programming, we respond to externals and external people in very different ways. This person I want to talk to, this person I don't want to talk to, this person's impressive, this person's unimpressive. But for the advanced bhakti yogi, they're looking at all of those same people They may recognize the external differences there, but all along they're seeing the spiritual oneness within. They're seeing the soul, the pure soul, the unadulterated pure soul underneath the body, underneath the mind. Right? And they're seeing God within the heart of every living being, accompanying them right there, very dear, right? That God that holds that soul very dear, they see that soul in the same way. Their vision of the soul within that body is aligned with God's vision of the soul in that body, right? Just like sometimes they say like a mother's love is like the kind of the closest thing we see to true spiritual love in this world. And sometimes the child is just such a terrible person. You know? And we see this sometimes, like there's trials, like this person became a murderer and they did all kind of horrible crimes and everybody's condemning him, and the newspapers and all the television is saying all these terrible things about. Everybody says this person is just the worst, but the mother is like, no, you just don't understand this person. I know who they really are underneath. They just, you know, met the wrong people, and, you know, that's the love that the mother sees. She sees underneath what others don't see. God sees underneath what others don't see. And the advanced devotee sees underneath what others don't see, just like God does. And they see God within the heart. So they're seeing a temple everywhere. When they look at the tree, they see a temple, right? When they look at the cow, when they look at the dog, when they look at the insect, when they look at any human being, they see that. And it's not just theoretical, but it's very deep in them. They see it and they feel it. And I was thinking, you know, sometimes like someone is separated from their loved one, maybe their mother, or maybe another one. And sometimes they're given some food that their loved one cooked. You understand? Maybe they haven't, maybe they're far away and the mother cooked them something and it was sent. And then they get the food that they grew up with. And that was always an expression of the love of the mother. And when the person eats that food, when they even look at it, they know who made it. And they're thinking of who made it. They're not just seeing this cookie or this loaf of bread. They see it just like anyone else. An average person sees it. They see the bread. But this person sees it and they know what the other person doesn't know. They know that behind it, there was my mother. And when they taste it, they can't help but think of their mother and feel feelings of affection for their mother. So the mother created it, the mother offered it, and it becomes a stimulus for loving remembrance of the mother. That another person might eat it and have zero, they're enjoying it, but they're not thinking of that mother. They have no idea. You with me? But the person that knows more and feels more, then when they eat that, more than even the taste of the food, they're relishing the feelings that they have, the feelings of love that they have. That's the way that a Bhakti Yogi is seeing and moving through the world. Because just like the mother created that, they see everything as a creation of God. And they have feelings of affection for God. So they're feeling that love wherever they turn, everywhere they look. You understand? So they're seeing more than the average person is seeing. They're not so dull like that. We tend to be very dull. And so this practice is to help us be less dull. Help us to first see God here, where everything's been designed to help you develop the focus. The right focus, the right knowledge, understanding, right? And the right sentiments. And even the right lifestyle are all connected to temple worship. Sometimes people worship the deity in their home. And the idea is that the entire home becomes clean. And the entire home begins to wake up early and go to sleep a little bit early. And in the mood, there's no fighting going on anymore. It elevates, the lifestyle elevates one's consciousness. So right knowledge, right sentiments, right lifestyle when these are all lined up, then whatever we connect that's spiritual, whether it be a name of God, whether it be wisdom shared in these sacred texts, whether it be a form of God, it becomes very potent. Otherwise, we can be, like for instance, we can chant the mantra and chant it again and again and again, but if our knowledge of who we are in relation to God in that mantra is not clear, or if our sentiments aren't well developed, or if our lifestyle is problematic, then no matter how much we try to meditate on this mantra, we have a difficult time absorbing the mind deeply in it. But this type of temple worship is meant to help us develop, become receptive to the potency of these mantras, and again, to see God everywhere. Now I would like to read you something. You ready? This is from a little bit further in that conversation that I was reading from earlier. And it's describing actually how one goes about the practice of archana, the practice of worship of the deity. All right. This is written thousands of years ago, spoken thousands and thousands of years before that, and still followed in the temples in India everywhere. This is where it comes from. This is one of the original places where the teachings of how to worship, how to do archana is given. Are you ready? Okay, let's do this. This is Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 11th canto, 3rd chapter, texts 47 through 50. One who desires to quickly cut the binding knot of ego in the heart should worship the form of Krishna. All right? Before I read this, let me just slow down for a moment. I remember when I was a boy, I grew up in the United States. There we had churches, at least that's what I grew up with, a church. In the church, Catholic churches, there's more, iconography. Right? There's more imagery to focus your mind on, but it's not the same conception. My guru was studying at Cambridge University in England. And one of his disciples went there to cook for him. So they lived in the same house, and the disciple would cook for him every day. He was from India, never been outside of India before. And so my guru took him to one of the cathedrals in Cambridge, England. You know, they have very beautiful, ancient, ornate, stunning architecture, very beautiful architecture. And he brought him into the temple, showed it to him, and then later, when they were going home, he said, "What did you think of the temple?" He said, "It was very beautiful, but where was the deity?" In other words, in his mind, you create all of this to put the deity on the altar and become the focus of meditation. Okay? And so I grew up with those kind of churches, and I had no idea about a ritual like archana, where you actually see a form of God and bring your mind to that form through making offerings with prayers like that. It's a meditation. I didn't know anything about that. And any exposure that I had to that kind of practice was like from movies, let's say, or television shows. And most commonly, it was presented as something that was very primitive, right? Like only some tribal people that are out of touch with civilization would do this kind of thing, and they have some idea that this form is, unless it's given offerings, it's going to create earthquakes and floods, and they're frightened of this, form, and it's totally superstitious and silly. That's what was fed to me. And so when the British came to India, they also saw deity worship that way. What are they doing? Like we see Jagannath here. And they saw Jagannath in Puri, and they created this word juggernaut from it, which was just a misunderstanding of who he was. It's in the minds of, because they do this, you saw this cart, I don't know if you noticed, but when we came in at the gate, there's a cart, and they take Jagannath, Krishna, and they take him around the neighborhood. And To everyone here, this is a beautiful, lovely thing, where God himself comes out and we can sing songs, and there's a sentiment that we're bringing Krishna back to Vrindavan, where he reciprocates with the love of all of his devotees in the most sweet and beautiful way. Jagannath. They saw it like this was some destructive, horrible tank like coming through the town, and they created this word Juggernaut, which just means like some irresistible, powerful, destructive force. Okay? They had a real misunderstanding of what was going on. So in any case, my conditioning was, this is a very primitive act, any kind of worshipping of a form like this. But who's primitive? You see, these sages really understood how the mind works. And rather than just let their minds go anywhere, which is really how I was raised, right? You just like, wherever you find something interesting or stimulating, just let your mind go there. It's like, no, you can regulate your mind. If you don't regulate your mind, it's going to bring you to all kinds of ignorance and suffering and darkness. But if you actually find a way to bring it to something that's higher and purer and eternal, and deeply spiritual, you can do that through a regulated practice and elevate your consciousness. It was a far more sophisticated understanding of psychology. It was a more evolved culture. And so we read a bit about that here when I read you this. Okay? So it opens up by saying, one who wants to cut the knot of ego in their heart. In other words, we're walking around this world thinking, I am this body and I am this mind. And because of that, we develop fear and conflict in so many ways with every other living being. I want to cut that knot. It has me bound. It has me being so much less than what I'm meant to be. I want to cut that. How do you cut that? So I'll start again. One who desires to quickly, not with a long practice that could be very difficult like other yoga practices, but quickly, you want an effective yogic practice, then this is what you should do. So, one who desires to cut the knot, the binding knot of ego in the heart quickly, should worship the form of Krishna with the blessings of one's revered instructor. Right? You don't just do it haphazardly, but you get the blessings and the direction of one's guru. With the blessings of one's revered instructor, one should approach the form of Krishna that one finds most dear. After cleansing oneself, purifying the body with pranayama and bhuta shuddhi. You all know pranayama, yes? The idea is, before you do this ritual, you sit down, you do the different hold, in order to step out of the world that you've been in, settle your mind, so that you can do this you can go deep into it, right? You settle your mind. And then bhuta shuddhi, have you heard of that before? Bhuta shuddhi means like it's self-purification. But essentially, and it can be done in different ways. The simplest, one very simple way, because my wife would do this kind of archana every day. And she was following the teachings of these sadhus who handed down different ways to practice archana. And what they handed down and what she embraced was a verse that was spoken by Sri Chaitanya, who's on the altar here. And all that verse says is very simple. I am not a brahmana. I am not a kshatriya. I am not a vaishya. I am not a shudra. I'm not a brahmachari, I'm not a grihastha, I'm not a vanaprastha, I'm not a sannyasi. Now, you may or may not be familiar with these terms, but the first four describe the basic four occupations. The brahmana is like the priest or the teacher. The kshatriya is like the military person or like the police force or justice department. The vaishya is the business leader. And the shudra are all like the employees, right? So someone fits into one of these categories naturally in terms of their employment. And brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa has more to do with the stages of life one goes through: a student life, married life, retired life, and then full renounced life. So this is the social system and the different categories that we adopt temporary dharmas in. Right? There's two types of dharmas. 1 minute, okay. There's temporary dharma. I needed 5, but I think it's no problem. But the idea is that by chanting this mantra, all of these external identities that I embrace temporarily as I move through this world, when I sit down to do this ritual, to do this worship, I'm reminding myself that I'm none of these. These are not who I really am. Who am I? Gopi Bhartur Kamalayor Dasa Dasa Anudasa. Eternally, I'm the servant of Krishna, the lover of the gopis. Like when we see in this painting, it's just there's Krishna and Radha. And behind them, there are other gopis that are serving them, creating that scene, making it just right for them. I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, who's the lover of all these gopis. That's who I really am. When I do my seva, I do my puja, I'm not this person of this world, I'm a person of the spiritual world. For this next 20 minutes or whatever it takes,